Hey there, my name's Drew Brashler, and in this video, I want to talk to you about StageConnect, what it is, and how we can utilize it with the Behringer WING. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident with your production gear, no matter where you're starting from. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, StageConnect is a digital protocol that was released when the Behringer WING was released. And this digital protocol travels down an XLR cable. Now, I have a big old XLR cable right here, and I do have some things that I need to mention about the type of XLR cable, but it allows us to send 32 channels in total bi-directionally over this single cable. Now, this is an uncompressed digital protocol that's sending 32 channels at 24-bit resolution at 48 kilohertz sample rate. Now, what's great is I have this entire stack of devices right here, and all of these work with StageConnect. And so StageConnect is great because it can actually send power down the cable, and it can transfer audio down that same cable, which is fantastic. Now, a few things to mention about this cable that we use with StageConnect. It is recommended that you use a data style cable. So that is going to be a 110 ohm style cable. Now, it is an XLR connector, so it's still 3-pin, but the cable, being a 110 ohm, works with both DMX, which is like a lighting protocol, as well as AES EBU. And so either going with an AES or a DMX style data cable, it will allow you to do a total distance of 40 meters, or about 131 feet in distance. Now, what's important is that is actually the full length of the chain. Now, AES 50, so our digital protocol for our stage boxes, they can always repeat and go another 80 meters. So with the Behringer WING, the max total of AES 50 is 80 meters using a STP, which is a shielded Cat5e cable. Now, you can always put a device in the middle and extend it by another 80 meters, which is great. Now, StageConnect means that we have to have a total length altogether of less than 40 meters, or less than 131 feet. So just keep that in mind. But what's great is if you get a big old cable that is a DMX style data cable, we can send 32 channels of audio down this single XLR line to whatever devices that we have. Now, as far as the devices go, there's a lot of different things that work with our Behringer WING over StageConnect. Now, some of these devices would include our Technik. This is the DN4816U, and so this allows us to connect a computer over StageConnect and give us a total of 32 channels bidirectionally. Now, when I say 32 channels in total bidirectionally, I am meaning that we can have 32 sends, or 32 outputs, or 32 inputs, or any combination, as long as the total adds up to 32. So you could have 16 inputs and 16 outputs, or you could have 8 inputs and 24 outputs. As long as that total reaches up to 32, it will work over StageConnect. Now, another option is our P24 from Behringer. Now, this is a personal monitor mixer similar to the P16, but this gives us the ability of having up to 24 channels going to our personal mixer. Now, another thing that this works with would be the P24 Hub. And so we can send StageConnect to the P24 Hub and then distribute out of the P24 Hub to our P24 personal mixers. Now, there's a lot of really cool things about this P24 system, including talkback ability and a bunch of different things. And I have some dedicated videos on the P24 and P24 Hub, so you can go check those out if you want to. Now, another thing that was just released that works over StageConnect is the Behringer Flow 4V and the Flow 4 VIO. Now, I have the VIO here in my hands, and what's great is we have 4 XLR inputs on this, as well as 2 headphone outputs. Now, we can take this and actually have this work with the Behringer WING, which I'll show you guys here in a little bit. Now, the main things that I get excited about when we're talking about StageConnect is going to be these 3 units that are right here. Now, they're kind of heavy, but these 3 different units give us the ability of really utilizing this StageConnect. Now, with our Behringer WING, so I have my Behringer WING Compact, We also have the Behringer WING rack. Now, those two devices only have 8 outputs in total for the actual outputs for our XLR on the console. Now, some people are going to need more than those 8 outputs. But the great thing about the Compact and the rack is that we have 24 inputs. So for a lot of bands that are out there, you have enough inputs on your Behringer WING Compact or Behringer WING rack to be able to support your full band. But maybe the outputs is the side where you are lacking, which in some cases you would go buy an AES-50 stage box to get additional outputs for you for being able to distribute audio to, say, maybe some in-ear transmitters or some floor wedges. So when I'm taking a look at these 3 units, let me grab the correct one that I really want to show you here. And that is this one, which is the DN4816O. Now this gives us 16 XLR outputs. Now this would work over our StageConnect. Now you can get not only 1, but 2 of these, and then you can max out the StageConnect line and give yourself 32 additional XLR outputs that are all line level directly off of one cable off the back of your Wing rack or Wing Compact or Wing full size. Now what's great is, again, these are 16 XLR outputs. So you can just add 1 if then the 8 plus 16 is enough to fulfill your output requirements for your band or your church. Now there's another device that we have that I'm pretty excited about, and that is this one. And this is the DN4888, which gives you 8 inputs and 8 outputs. So if you stack both of these together, this would give you 24 outputs and 8 line level inputs. Now, the inputs are line level, so you would only have trim adjustment as far as the preamp gain goes for the inputs that are going into this StageConnect. So this could be utilized for a wireless microphone that maybe has a line level output, or some keyboards that have a line level output, that sort of thing. And for the inputs on this, it is a combo jack, so it does have a TRS 1/4 inch input for the inputs on this. But these two devices together would take up our 32 channels of StageConnect. And so the next thing I want to talk about is the DN4816i, which is an input version for our StageConnect. Now this gives us 16 combo jacks again, and it's going to be XLR or that TRS 1/4 inch. And again, they are line level. So you can't just plug in a microphone into this. You would have to have some sort of preamp before that that would then get it up to line level to be able to put this into it. But these devices are great. Now, say you wanted to have some outboard gear, maybe some outboard effects or some outboard compressors, that sort of thing. The DN4888 would be a perfect solution for you because over one cable, you would have 8 additional inputs and 8 additional outputs, giving you the ability of interfacing 8 total outboard gear with your Behringer WING, which is pretty awesome. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, what about the latency on this? Now, with any digital protocol and audio, with an analog to digital converter and a digital to analog converter, there is going to be a little bit of latency. Now, when I measure the latency out of my Behringer WING through the output of an AES-50 stage box, like my DL32, and I compare the timing of the output that's physically on the back of this wing compared to the output that's on the DL32, we are looking at 0.8 milliseconds of latency as far as the output going on the DL32. So the DL32 has a latency on that output of 0.8 milliseconds, which is insanely fast. That's less than a millisecond of latency. Now, when I measure the latency for my StageConnect devices, I actually measure 0.4 milliseconds of latency, so half the time of latency as far as the DL32 goes in comparison to my StageConnect devices. Now, what's great is even if I am measuring a second device, so I can actually loop out of this device to another one with StageConnect, keeping in mind that the total length of the entire cable all the way to the end device is less than 40 meters. the comparison of latency between device 1 and device 2 is identical. So again, latency is not much of a problem as far as StageConnect goes because we actually have a faster latency than an AES-50 stage box, which is fantastic. Now, when we are connecting a StageConnect device with our Behringer WING, we can actually output about 18 watts of power out of the back port on our Behringer WING, giving us the power to be able to power one device in line, which is great. Now, if you want to add a second device, you will need to add power somewhere. Now, that power can either be on the first unit or it can be on the second unit. But keep in mind that the max distance of your last device has to be less than 40 meters. So I'm just going to keep pounding that into you because this is a very important thing. Because once you reach past that 40 meters, you're going to run into some issues. So just keep that in mind. But with this device, so I have my 48160 here, all I have to do is take my StageConnect cable and plug it into the back. Now, with StageConnect, you are going to have a master device, which is going to be, in this case, my Behringer WING, and then you are going to have a slave device, which is where that XLR needs to plug into. So we can see that I've plugged it into the slave port right here. Now, there are a couple of different options that we need to set on these devices, which I have made some dedicated videos specifically for each of these units when you're using it with the Behringer WING. But the main thing is we need to make sure that our StageConnect synchronization is set to slave, which is important. Now, at this point, we can see that there is a blue light for power and a green light for StageConnect. Now, actually on the mixer, if I go to routing and then I go to sources, I can go look at my StageConnect and see what devices I have on the StageConnect line. Now, if I want to add a second device, all I have to do is just add my digital cable between the master output of the first unit and then put that into the slave on the second unit. Now we will notice that this second unit will power, but not fully. We can see that there is no blue light here, and we can also see that the StageConnect is red. And so what we need to do is we need to add power to either the first or the second unit in the chain. In which case I have my power block right here, and I'm going to go ahead and add power on the second unit. And once we do that, on the Behringer WING, I will then go to my StageConnect on sources and I will rescan. And once I rescan, then it's going to rescan down the StageConnect cable and see what devices are connected, in which case we can see that we have a 48160 and a 4888 sitting right here. So this gives me 8 inputs. So we can see that these are the 8 inputs. Now, as far as the outputs go, I can go look at outputs and I can pull up my output group of StageConnect, and we can see that I have 24 outputs available on my StageConnect line. Now that's as easy as this is to set this up. So again, StageConnect is one of my favorite additions that the Behringer WING family brought to the ecosystem of Behringer, Midas, and Clark Technik, because you have so many options as far as connectivity over a very simple cable. Now, if you want to check out more about StageConnect, I have put a blog post on my website about StageConnect and all of the different devices that we have. Now, if you want to check that out, there is a link down in the description below. I just realized that I forgot to show you about connecting StageConnect to the new Flow 4 VIO, which I said I was going to. So before we're actually done, I do want to show you connecting this guy. And so let me go ahead and unplug some of these things and we can get this connected. Now, one of the things that I love about the Flow 4 VIO is that you can connect up to 4 inputs into this. Now, those inputs are an XLR or a 1/4 inch. Now, one thing to note about these is they are 32-bit preamps, but they are incredibly quiet. So you can add a bunch of trim on this input into your Behringer WING, and it's going to be insanely quiet in comparison to some of the other XLR inputs that we have that do have preamps. But just keep in mind that we have a trim adjustment over the input volume of these 4 inputs. But one of the greatest parts about this is that you have 2 headphone outs here, which are routable separately inside of the Behringer Wing. And then we also have two volume knobs controlling the volume out of these headphone ports separately, which is great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug this into what's called client. Now, the greatest thing about this is 8 channels from this device going to our Behringer Wing. So if I go and look at my input sources and I go look at StageConnect, I actually have 8 inputs from this Flow 4 VIO, which is cool because there is a USB audio jack which allows me to send audio from my computer over StageConnect via this box to my Behringer Wing, which is very cool. Now, the 4 inputs right here are going to show up on 1 through 4. So these 4 inputs. Now, as far as the headphone outs go, let's go ahead and actually route some monitors to this. So I'm going to go to my routing and then go to outputs. And then I'm going to go to my output group of StageConnect. And then right here on my output 1, what I can do is I can go and route a monitor bus. So here is my monitor 1, left and right. And that is going to show up on my volume 1 here, and then my headphone port 1. Then the next 2 are going to be the second headphone. So here is bus 2 left and 2 right. So I can see that I have sent my bus 1 left and right to the first 2, and then my bus 2 left and right to the second 2, meaning that bus 1 is going to go to my headphone output 1, bus 2 is going to go to my headphone output 2, which is fantastic. I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you do happen to have any questions, or there's a video that you're hoping that I would make on the Wing or StageConnect or any other devices, please post that in the comments section down below, as I'm always reading through those comments to find videos that are going to be helpful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day.